And ASSP pursues our vision passionately because we believe our nation's progress and our collective prosperity depend on our students' ability to lead us through a complicated future rife with challenges we cannot yet even define. But first, we have to keep our students from getting killed. Because the death of a child means the death of all that child would have accomplished and contributed. Every day we are losing far more of our future than we can afford. Since the February 14 Parkland shooting, 171 more children have been killed by a bullet, from shootings ranging from gun-cleaning accidents to violent, targeted slaughter. And many of those shootings happen in schools, despite the valiant efforts of principals to foster welcoming, inclusive cultures in which each student feels known and valued. And when the television cameras leave and the countless well-wishers have resumed their lives, the principal alone bears the responsibility to lead the school through the process of healing and rebuilding.
Of course, we are all inspired by the movement our peers in Parkland have begun to reduce gun violence and make our schools safer. Following their lead, our committee has organized and participated in advocacy actions in our communities, including the National Day of Action Against Gun Violence, coming up this Friday on the 19th anniversary of Columbine. This movement is specific to a very important issue, but it also reminds us how powerful our voices can be on all the topics that matter to us. Sustainability, the health of our economy, the future of the American workforce, and all other issues our generation will have to address in the future that are affected by decisions adults make today. We're not waiting our turn. We're here to take our turn. My generation is raising its voice now because we will be part of the solution. We know that if we don't solve manageable problems today, we're doomed to face massive problems tomorrow. We hope policymakers will be open to hearing us, if not because of our ideas, then because 4 million of my peers will turn 18 before the November elections.
That exists within all of your schools. There's no one who sees that better than the principal who gets to view every part of the school every day. And the way that these students have stood up in Parkland, the way that they have joined together with students from around the country in high schools and frankly in middle schools with the understanding that gun violence is their focus, but what they're doing is meant to create change in the community that will ultimately benefit all of us. That is the best way for them to meet their full potential, and in so doing, they're going to change not just their community, they're going to change the country, and ultimately with the support of students that you help to empower in your communities all across the country, they're going to have a profound impact on the direction, not just of the debate, but on the direction of the United States and the world.
Together and go through a mock incident involving, you can imagine helicopters and first responders and fire alarms going off, makeup artists even involved in this exercise. And what we learned through that experience of having a full-scale exercise is that the agencies needed to develop the kinds of relationships so if and when a real event occurs, they know each other. And that's exactly what happened when the December 2nd attacks, the terrorist attacks happened in the Inland Regional Center in our community, locked down all of our schools. The final episode that took the terrorists out took place right outside of one of our schools. It was on that day the relationships that were developed back in 2013 that helped us on the day of that event so that our folks were able to respond quickly and appropriately.
What Congress and even our state legislators can do for the issue of after an incident, about putting our house back in order, about even preventative measures when it comes to the emotional and the mental health aspects of what our communities need, both in recovery and even before we reach those kind of incidences. I know that Title IV funding to the Department of Ed is a major thing. I would hope Congress would consider that is a major point of funding access for a lot of our smaller districts to be able to provide it. Our community right now is grappling with a wonderful outpouring of effort to help with therapy and counseling for our kids and staff, but there's a shortfall in the community. There just aren't enough folks who are therapists and mental health providers We need to grow more of that. We need to look at funding through the Department of Health and Title IV, more opportunities in the school to get those folks in and advise us on those things that make schools the type of community that kids can surround and support, and staff can really engage with in a positive way. Threat response teams, like evaluating known kind of threats in the community. I think that's something that even law enforcement from the FBI and the federal level into local areas can really thread in to work with schools about letting the two of them sit at the table together on these standing committees about threat assessments and talk about logistically what does the school need to know about existing threats that might be coming online from individuals or other places, and what can the school do to advise law enforcement about things that we may need support on. I think are major pieces of that sort of interactive effort that we've been mentioning.
Security measures in schools, that starts to trigger a concern about over-policing in schools and about how certain disciplinary practices can potentially have a disproportionate impact on students.
From my perspective, and again, having the fortunate benefit of having a robust school resource officer program in our district, these aren't just street officers who come into the building and work with our children. These are trained police officers first, and duly certified police officers, who then go through extensive training to understand children, to work with children, working closely with the National Association of School Resource Officers, and really building a curriculum for police officers to work with our children. So I might agree with that a little bit more if we were just talking, taking a police officer off the street and popping them into a schoolhouse. However, the relationships are built because these are officers who oftentimes choose to go into this particular dispatch for their work and will stay in this.
To the question about arming teachers, we absolutely should not put that burden on our school teachers. It's not what they signed up for. In my opinion, the pen is still mightier than the sword. The tools we already use. I happen to serve one of America's most beautifully diverse communities, and the tools we already use, such as suspensions, expulsions, citations, especially for students of color, are already disproportionately used. And so I would hate for us to enter down that road. I think that that's a no-win for our educators, and it's certainly a no-win for our students.
A few key policy actions you heard today that Congress can take to better protect our schools and communities. First, increase funding for programs that support safe and healthy school initiatives like comprehensive mental health awareness training, school-based counseling, and violence prevention. Most notable among these programs is Title IV of the Every Student Succeed Act, also known as ESSA. Second, support legislation that will increase funding for critical mental health intervention and violence prevention programs, like HR 2913 and S 1320, the Mental Health in Schools Act. Finally, support policies to strengthen our nation's gun laws and keep guns out of the wrong hands, including universal background checks and limiting access to firearms for individuals who have demonstrated violence and threatening behavior. We hope that you will look to NASP as a resource as you develop policies to improve school safety and climate. Please feel free to reach out to any staff member in the room if you have any additional questions. Once again, thank you very much for attending today.